Welcome back, everyone. We are out here with Skinny Medic himself. What I wanted to do today, since we have a expert on site, is to go through just what kind of supplies you should be thinking about getting, depending on your scenario, as it relates to just medical emergencies, maybe even disaster preparedness to a little extent, and just get his take on that. So, if you could.
Yeah, definitely learned a lot over the last week or so. I've been out since Thursday morning, basically at 5 o'clock in the morning, living mostly out in the field. I've been here sleeping a little bit, but I've learned a ton through disaster medicine in the last week. But one of the few things we saw is obviously we had trees down in our area. So I like having a stop the bleed kit because it was taking us an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to people. So if you've had an accident where major bleeding is involved with a chainsaw, axe, things like that, and it's going to take us 2 hours to get to you, you could bleed to death well before that time period. We know if you have a femoral artery, 3 minutes, you're dead. So having a stop the bleed kit is super important. So one of the things I have with me was a cat tourniquet and combat gauze. I could control a lot of bleeding with a tourniquet and combat gauze to control major bleeding. That way, if you are working with a chainsaw, maybe it's been a little bit since you did with that, you have an accident, you can stop the bleed and be okay until we can get an ambulance there. So this was one of the things we saw. We had several people get trapped by fallen trees, injuries, things like that, and it was just taking us so long to get the patients because we couldn't physically get the ambulance there.
Yep. And just on the subject of tourniquets, I know it's something people always want to debate down below in the comments. My experience has been with cap tees and soft tee tourniquets. I've had nothing but good experiences with both, but I'm sure there's other ones out there. Are there anything else that you would recommend? Just different options, or just stick with those?
I would stick with those. Those are my two favorite. Like
me too.
The ETC is another one. It's the everyday tourniquet. We carry it at Medical Gear Outfitters. It's a little bit smaller one, but still my go-to is going to be a cat or a soft tee. Like those are proven. We know they work. So those are the two that I'd recommend. Just be careful about buying these off Amazon because you can buy Chinese knockoffs. They're fake toys and they'll break. So just be cautious about where you buy these from.
And typically the point that will break on there is the windlass on the knockoff ones, which means you can't cinch it down correctly and you just can't stop the bleed, essentially.
Definitely.
So
another thing that is a pressure bandage. You can do a lot with this regular pressure bandage. Whether it make a splint, you've fallen, you have a leg fracture, arm fracture, you have some bleeding, you can even make a tourniquet out of this. Someone gets a head injury. One of the folks we saw had a tree that hit him in the head. So he had a huge knot inside of his head. We just had to bandage it up right there until we could get him to help. But this pressure bandage worked fantastic for that type of injury.
Sure. And just before we continue on, I do want to note that if you guys don't know how to use this stuff, there are tons of classes in your area. Additionally, he has a ton of videos on his channel walking you through that. Anything else you recommend in terms of training for folks out there?
Yeah, find a Stop the Bleed course. A lot of ranges are now offering that. Find a good Stop the Bleed course. Obviously, go to my channel. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, there's plenty of videos I've done on every one of these things on how to use them, how to work it, but getting some good hands-on skills is also important.
Agreed. Just wanted to get that out of the way before we move on because I'm sure someone's like, I have no idea how to use that. So there you go.
In a time of emergency is not when you want to be reading the directions going, how do I apply a tourniquet? So at least have some idea what you're doing there as well. Thinking about like fallen tree limbs and like that, an ice pack would work good. One of the other things we saw was people with medications that have to be kept cold. Yes. People were begging for ice, things like that. So if you have ice packs, these are pretty cheap. You can buy them in bulk, keep them stored up. But this is obviously for fractures, for pain management. And then just to keep your insulin cold, your medications that need to be refrigerated, that now you don't have power for 24 hours, a week, something like that. You can keep your medicines cold with this. So these are cheap.
Yep, I saw the same thing. As you guys know, if you've watched the channel recently, I've been out on the ground in the mountains as well. And the need for coolers was something people did not expect. And it took about 48 hours for them to start arriving on site. So in the interim, that definitely could help.
People were begging for ice, you know, just bags of ice we were trying to find, things like that. Dry ice was in need as well. So keeping your medicines cold is another option there. If you have a cooler, if you can pop those open, they're going to keep it cold for a little bit. So it's a temporary fix to a long-term problem.
Yep, for sure.
So the other thing is, I know we don't want to bring up N95 masks just due to COVID, and like I get it, like I'm over it too. But there's some strange smells coming out. We had a problem with one of our city departments where the sewage pump cut off and the backup generator didn't fire up. So then we had a potential there was going to be sewer running down the streets. If you've never smelled that, you probably should at least once. So an N95 mask at least help block some of the smells. We know North Carolina, there's been like 7,500 deaths right now we're seeing. I don't want to quote a number because it's going to change.
It's changing every day.
Yes, but we know we have dead bodies, and those are going to start to decomp and start to smell bad. So I think having some kind of filter on there so you don't smell that as much is important. There again, I know people don't want to talk about a 95 mask, but I'll bring it up. And then hand sanitizer. Sanitation is a real big problem. If you don't have running water, people are still going to the bathroom. You're still dealing with patients. So hand sanitizer is something to keep around as well.
What do you think about iodine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keeping it clean, like I said, just as long as you let it dry. Just If you're going to use it, just don't blow on it, but let it air dry.
Yep, for sure.
The other thing that I liked is a Mylar blanket, especially right now, this next coming week, we're going to be getting some cold weather. It is a lot easier to prevent hypothermia than to fix it. So if we can cover someone up with a Mylar blanket, this is a blizzard blanket. It's great. This one is better than like the cheap $5 ones. This is a 2-layer. But still, a warm blanket, a wool blanket, something like that to keep people warm, because this very well could happen to us in the wintertime. And now temperature, heat is going to be a problem, so keeping patients warm.
And just something to consider on that is how you're going to store your items, right? So if you're in a car, for example, and you have limited storage space, this makes a ton of sense. Or if you have a kit and a go bag, makes a ton of sense. If you plan on using that item in your home, maybe a wool blanket, like you just said, right? So everyone's needs are a little bit different, so you kind of have to flush that out yourself. Before we continue on with Skinny Medic, a couple admin notes that we have to go over, and then we'll be right back out there on the porch. So number one, big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, and that is the good folks over at Outdoors Ninja. I shared this app on Twitter a few days ago, and the feedback has been tremendously positive. Y'all love it. Basically what it is that it is a place that you can find good deals. I know a lot of people who follow me are looking for good deals on outdoor stuff, camping stuff, guns, gear, etc. Outdoors Ninja is on both the Google Store as well as the Apple Store. Check it out. There's good stuff over there. Additionally, the other sponsor, our main channel sponsor, is going to be the good folks over at Brownells. Most of you guys know who Brownells is, but of course they sell all of the stuff that the channel here talks about, probably some of the medical stuff, but also firearms, optics, accessories, gunsmithing supplies, all of that stuff can be found over there at Brownells. Big thank you to them for that. And the last one is that this is going to be a Mug Club episode. I didn't intend it to be, but I was just sitting inside right now editing this, and I was like, this needs to be a Mug Club episode. And we're going to take it over on Mug Club and kind of expand out this gear. I asked Dietrich before filming this, I said, hey, get some of the basic stuff that we can go over because I just kind of wanted to lay a baseline. So we're going to do that here on YouTube and Rumble for everybody for free. And then I'm going to kind of deep dive into some stuff that you might not always need in terms of medical gear, preparedness, etc. And we're going to talk about that over exclusively on Mug Club. There should be a code on your screen here that will get you guys a free month membership over there at Mug Club, but it's not just myself. A lot of other creators creating exclusive content over there, and of course it is censorship free. We're going to show a couple things that probably would get the video banned on YouTube because that's the way YouTube is, unfortunately, over there on Mug Club. And then we're going to answer your Q&A questions like we always do as well. And that's pretty much it. Back to the video.
The other thing that we found out very quickly is a way to transport patients.
Yep.
This is a litter that we can move. Now, medicine part's easy. As you know, we start moving patients, that gets physically demanding.
Yep.
So if you start moving bodies, moving patients, any length of time, physically you're going to get exhausted. But we responded to several motor vehicle accidents, motorcycle accidents, and we physically could not get an ambulance to them, so we had to carry them out. So having a litter so you could get a loved one, a friend to a main road to get to the ambulance may absolutely save someone's life, because the ambulance crew may not be able to get to you, the fire department can't get to you. But if you can move your friend to where help can get to, this is going to be a big help. And this holds like 1,200 pounds. Yep. So we're not moving 1,200 pounds a whole lot.
No,
so.
I laughed. It's a funny story now because everything worked out. But a team I was working with, and they're here in Western North Carolina right now, essentially 2 vehicles pulled up to a guy who was injured and needed to be evac. And they were physically trying to carry him. And then one guy said, hey, I have a litter. And they were like, what? Why didn't you tell us? Because they were moving, that moved him like 200 yards by that point. And so that's why I laughed. Yes, having one definitely is helpful rather than having to move someone manually. And
we do trauma classes, you know, like law enforcement, police, military, stuff like that. Like the medicine part, tourniquets, wound packing, chest seals, that's easy. We start moving, evacing patients out, that's when you figure out you wish you'd done a few more sit-ups, a couple more miles on the treadmill. But yeah, but this will definitely, trying to carry somebody who's especially limp and it's just a lot of work. This makes it a lot easier.
Agreed.
The other thing is, obviously, we have pre-made kits, and I think that's a good thing to have. If you're not sure what you're looking for, what to build, we have pre-made kits. Like this one is our IROC kit. Comes in a Pelican case. So with things destroyed, paints floating, none of that. So this is a nice kit. It's a mix between a trauma kit and a boo-boo kit. It's got a CPR, it's got a tourniquet in here, it has a pressure bandage, but it has like burn cream and some medicines and stuff like that as well. So this is just a good kit that you could throw in the back of a pickup truck, a UTV, and you're not worried about it falling off because it's in a Pelican case.
Sure. And one thing I've seen over the last week or so is at every site I've been to, there's been a need for or a demand for Benadryl. There's been some issues with wasps and yellow jackets coming out of the ground because of the flooding, but it's also being used for many other things. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Benadryl is a good sleep aid.
Yep.
You know, most times if you're like, go get sleep aid from CVS like that, it's Benadryl.
Right.
We know that the AC's out, it's hot, it's humid, so getting some sleep is important to kind of reset your clock there. So having Benadryl, you could chew it up for those allergic reactions, anaphylaxis, and then it's a sleep aid. Like you got to get some sleep to fix your house, fix what's going on. So getting some sleep, it's a good sleep aid.
Yep, for sure. And additionally, other things we've seen is issues getting prescriptions written, things like that. So if you can contact your physician and get an extra 30 days, depending on what medication, obviously there's a lot of rules about that, but if you can do it, it's definitely something I recommend doing it while you can, because right now, 2 days ago, I was talking to a gentleman out of Asheville, and he was trying to get his prescriptions refilled, but his doctor hasn't been found yet. So you don't want to find yourself in that kind of situation. So anything else you wanted to add?
The other thing that we ran into a lot was people that are on oxygen.
Yeah.
They're on oxygen concentration, they have portable O2, things like that. So I know you do a lot of generators on your channel, so just think about that ahead of time, is if you have a loved one or if you're on oxygen yourself and you're going to be without power for a week, 2 weeks, you got to be able to keep your oxygen concentrator going, your machine going. So having a backup generator that's going to run that machine is important. So think about getting a generator now, during the time of crisis, or right after the time of crisis. Not time to go to Lowe's or Home Depot to buy a generator. Let's go ahead and get that one and have it ready to go if you're on oxygen.
For sure. And I think the video's probably gone long enough, but it should have given you a good idea, starting point, things to think of. Definitely thank you to Skinny Medic for having me out. Again, link to his channel will be down below. All of the regular YouTube things are coming, so follow me on all my social medias, subscribe to his channel as well. The different sites here at the bottom of your screen are places that you can sign up for my different email lists, so that way you can stay informed and not be censored by an algorithm, because it is real. And with that, anything you want to add before we close the video?
No, that's it. Thanks for coming.
Awesome. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next video.